Tonight, Jane Philpott speaks, but not in detail.
There's absolutely no reason that we have to have all this innuendo.
Frustrated Liberal MPs encourage their colleagues to say more, if there is more. At Issue looks at what it means and what could come next.
Anything having to do with safety clearly should be standard equipment.
2 planes in deadly crashes without optional safety features. What we've learned about the 737 MAX 8s flown by airlines in Canada.
It was a meeting of 2 broken men. He's broken, I'm broken.
And on the eve of the Humboldt sentencing, what's at stake for parents and the driver who killed their children? The legal case will end, the sadness will not. This is The National. Try as they might, the Liberals just can't seem to turn the page on the SNC-Lavalin controversy. Today, the pressure came from outside the party and from within. While the opposition are using hours of parliamentary votes to try and force the government into letting 2 former cabinet ministers speak, today one of them did, in a way. And as Katie Simpson explains, that brought its own kind of pressure.
It is very simple. We will let them sleep when they let her speak.
Mr. Sajjan.
Trying to wear the Liberals down, the Conservatives forced an all-night vote-a-thon in protest of the SNC-Lavalin affair. With every passing hour,
the next question is on opposed vote number 4, vote number 76, vote number 133.
The opposition tried to pressure the government into waiving all confidentiality around the controversy because it says some involved have been silenced. An argument that is gaining traction thanks to Jane Philpott. In an interview with Maclean's magazine, the former cabinet minister accused her party of trying to shut down the affair. There's much more to the story that should be told, she said. I believe we actually owe it to Canadians as politicians to ensure that they have the truth.
The issue of privilege is not one to take lightly in any government.
The Prime Minister does not appear ready to waive any more rules, but members of his team, including longtime Liberal MP Judy Sgro, say that is not necessary.
They're under no restrictions. They can walk into the House of Commons right now and say parliamentary privilege, Mr. Speaker, and say whatever they want.
Sgro says both Philpott and former Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould enjoy what is known as parliamentary privilege, a set of rules that protect MPs from legal consequences when speaking in certain places, including the House of Commons.
There's absolutely no reason that we have to have all this innuendo lurking around about this, that, and the rest of it. That's the platform. As parliamentarians, we have the House of Commons, and that's where they both should be going.
This former House of Commons law clerk agrees both former ministers would be protected by privilege.
In my view, they are totally at liberty to say whatever they want in the House or in appearing before a committee.
So far, no Liberal is publicly calling for Philpott to be turfed over her comments.
Well, I know that I really value having her in caucus. I value her as a member.
But the patience of some is wearing thin.
Yeah, I think that there has been political damage. I agree with that. You know, it's one thing to take a hit from the opposition or circumstances beyond caucus or cabinet. It's another thing to take political hits from your own people.
Katie is outside the House of Commons tonight. Okay, some Liberals clearly now expressing frustration, Katie. So why don't Philpott and Jody Wilson-Raybould just quit caucus?
Jane Philpott acknowledged in that interview that what she said publicly has hurt some of her colleagues. And that hurt might run really deep, given that Philpott was so respected by her peers as an effective leader. Philpott says she's still a Liberal. She does not want to see Andrew Scheer become Prime Minister, so she's staying on the team. But moving forward, Jane Philpott, as she has said in that interview, part of the reason why she is speaking out is that she's hoping to make the Liberal Party the best version of the party it can be. Rosie.
Okay. All right, Katie Simpson here in Ottawa tonight for us. Thank you, Katie. That marathon voting session is a political pressure tactic by the Conservatives, but it's important to note that these are votes of confidence. So losing just one could actually trigger an election. And that almost seemed to have happened this afternoon.
The next question
is on opposed vote number 126.
So the opposition said dozens of Liberal MPs got to their seats after the vote had already started, making them then ineligible to vote. The Speaker ruled that it wasn't up to him, though, to monitor attendance and left it to the, quote, honor of individual MPs to decide if they should vote or not. So it went ahead a second time, and yes, the Liberal government survived. So no election for now. Where do things go from here? At Issue will have their say in about 25 minutes' time. But first, Ian, you've got some developments on the Boeing story.
And it's a story, Rosemary, of growing problems for the world's biggest airplane maker. 4 U.S. agencies are now investigating Boeing's 737 MAX planes, questioning how they got safety approval from the Federal Aviation Authority.
What did the FAA and Boeing know? When did they know it? And did they tell anybody about it, or did they hide that?
The questions come after 2 crashes killed 346 people. Last October, a Lion Air jet went down off the coast of Indonesia. 13 days ago, an Ethiopian Airlines plane crashed in that country. And so many places around the world have grounded the 737 MAX 8, including here in Canada. But now we're learning that some of these jets may be safer than others. The CBC's Peter Armstrong has that surprising development.
The 737 MAX planes offer the latest in technology, luxury, and safety. They come equipped with not 1, but 2 sensors to alert pilots and correct the plane in an emergency, at least if you pay extra for a series of upgrades.
Well, it's kind of like buying a car.
Airline industry experts are baffled today that what seem like basic safety features weren't offered on all planes.
We need redundancy in the system so a single component failure won't cause a trip or an alarm.
It's still not known what caused the 2 fatal crashes, but investigators of both incidents are looking at new software called MCAS. If the plane detected the nose getting too high, it would automatically prompt the stabilizer on the tail to pitch the aircraft down.
It would have been a very frightening for the pilots for sure.
Former Air Canada pilot Aaron Murphy spent years flying the 737s. He says a simple switch could have disabled the MCAS system altogether.
And I'm disabling the MCAS by doing the trim cutout switches.
But we now know the pilots in the Lion Air crash didn't know what to do. Black box data show they searched frantically through their handbooks as the plane lost control. We also know neither flight had 2 optional safety features that may have helped the pilots understand what was wrong. The angle of attack sensor warns them the nose is too high, and something called a disagree light tells them the plane's getting some conflicting messages.
Now, whether you want an extra lav in the airplane or more comfortable seats or different cabin lighting, that's an optional thing. But anything having to do with safety clearly should be standard equipment.
But many airlines did not buy those upgrades, and regulators simply don't require them. Air Canada, WestJet, and Sunwing all fly the 737 MAX 8s. Air Canada says it has both indicators. WestJet says it bought the angle of attack indicator, but not the disagree light, and Sunwing didn't respond. Boeing now says it will make the disagree light standard and refit any planes that don't have them. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
It's been a full week now since Cyclone Addai slammed into Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. But with each passing day comes a clearer picture of just how dire the disaster has become. More than 550 people are now confirmed dead. Hundreds more are missing. Entire towns and villages remain completely submerged by the floodwaters. This satellite image shows the Mozambique coast before the cyclone hit. And now, after. The dark areas near the city of Beira show the flooding, an inland ocean up 50 kilometers wide. And in that country alone, at least 400,000 people have been displaced from their homes, and an estimated 15,000 are still waiting to be rescued on rooftops, in trees, even in the water. Kayla Hounsell has that story.
The conditions seem impossible, but the actions are heroic. All day in Beira, Mozambique, dramatic rescues. One after the other, people deserted what was left of their belongings to be hoisted into a helicopter. Safe after days clinging to hope.
Some with fractures, broken limbs.
Medical teams triaged the injured.
We may treat the wounds now, but there are a lot of mental health issues that will arise from this. Some of them, they've lost the whole family. Some have lost children.
Indeed, this man is raking through the mud looking for his 2 children.
Even dead is better, so that I can bury them nicely. My heart is paining.
As the number of dead continues to rise, Mozambique has declared its first ever national state of emergency. The stuff of nightmares keeps emerging from remote areas.
People coming to villages and finding bodies and bodies in the rivers. And as night falls, still hearing screams of people as they're washed down the rivers. I mean, this is a tremendously huge disaster.
As people use any means they can to survive, many are now arriving at evacuation centers. Part of the challenge for survivors, rescuers, and aid workers: wiped out infrastructure, like this washed out bridge. But food is starting to get through. The World Food Program has stepped up distribution, but the need is immense and enduring. Hundreds of thousands will require food assistance for months. In Mozambique, in a powerful moment, churchgoers sang and worshipped at the site of a demolished church, asking God to support them in prayer and in rebuilding. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, London.
To Europe now, where a high-stakes game of chicken continued today. With the Brexit deadline looming, it's hard to tell where Theresa May is more unpopular. In Britain, where the Prime Minister's Brexit strategy is wildly divisive, or in Brussels, where she was today, pleading for more time. Getting it meant winning over 27 exasperated EU members. Tough enough. But as Thomas Dagla tells us, May's homecoming will be even tougher.
There are hopes cooler heads will prevail. But how can anyone stay calm as Brexit goes down to the wire, threatening in the process to upend this place, the heart of Europe? Yes, she's back in Brussels with a request for Britain to stay a little longer instead of leaving the EU in a week.
What matters is that we deliver on the vote of the British people.
Theresa May in the spotlight and under pressure to avoid a hard exit, with the added embarrassment of MPs back home twice rejecting her Brexit deal.
This was supposed to be the last time Britain came to an EU Council summit as a member state, but yet again, Brexit has overtaken every other issue.
European leaders considered together May's proposal for a 3-month Brexit delay. Whoever guessed it would come to this? Not even this full-time EU watcher.
A year ago, nobody would have predicted the drama and the sheer complexity and the sheer cliff edge of this moment.
After 7 hours behind closed doors, leaders emerged with a plan and 2 options. If British MPs again dump the divorce deal next week, Brexit is delayed by just 2 weeks. But if the deal is approved,
the European Council agrees to an extension until the 22nd of May.
This closes and completes the full package. There is no more than we can live.
After a long day in Brussels, May's mission remains unfinished.
And I will make every effort to ensure that we are able to leave with a deal and move our country forward.
The Brexit cliff edge has only been pushed back a little further. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Brussels.
We're following the latest out of New Zealand tonight, where the country is marking 1 week since the Christchurch shooting that left 50 people dead.
Hayya ala salah.
Thousands took part in a nationwide prayer, followed by 2 minutes of silence to show their support for the Muslim community. The Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, led the proceedings just steps away from the Al Noor Mosque, where most of the victims were killed. Tomorrow will be an important moment in the Humboldt Broncos bus crash story. The driver of the semi-truck that blew through a stop sign right into the path of the hockey team's bus will be sentenced. 16 people were killed in that crash last April. Jazz courage Singh Sidhu pleaded guilty to 29 charges. With the conviction came many of the details of what happened that terrible night, but there is one crucial unanswered question. Why did Sidhu not pay attention to the signs? Today, Susan Ormison went back to where the crash happened.
Jaskirat Singh Sidhu pleaded guilty and apologized, but he still can't or won't explain how his crime occurred. Here's what we do know. Last April 6th, with a clear day just like this, Sidhu had been driving a rig by himself for just a week, and he'd never been to this part of the prairies before. In fact, he got lost a bit trying to find the place where he was picking up a load of peat. Once loaded up on his way, the tarp on his load started to flap. He stopped to tie it down and then continued on, but looking back. That insecure tarp is the only thing his lawyer could name which may have distracted Sidhu on his route. Distracted enough to miss not one or two, but 4 signs on the road indicating he was approaching an intersection before the large flashing stop sign. This was not a momentary lapse, according to the Crown, as if Sidhu had glanced out the side. This is not just 1 sign, not 2, 3, it's 4. He completely ignored them. How does that happen? All he had to do was stop. Just stop. We wouldn't even be here today. Defense counsel Mark Brayford told the court in January he wished there was a more fulsome explanation. I can't tell people what happened. He simply doesn't know. A classic case of inexperience working against him. He recognizes that. Sidhu didn't brake here at the stop sign at all. He flew through this intersection at between 86 and 96 kilometers an hour. The Broncos bus driver heading north spotted the rig only at the last moment as it barreled across his path. He did brake hard, reacting faster than normal, but Glenn Dirksen couldn't have avoided the collision. In court last January, Sidhu spoke haltingly, saying he didn't know what had happened when he crawled out of his upturned cab, which leaves a terrible void for families who desperately want to know why, to get some concrete explanation for the crash.
You know, every day now it was a year ago the last time we saw him. It was a year ago. The last time this happened, it was a year ago. You know, it's this week is gonna be tough.
So now it's up to Judge Inez Cardinal to weigh what penalty for dangerous driving without drugs or alcohol, but which caused so much death and injury. 16 players and team staff were killed, 13 more injured. The last Bronco to get out of hospital, Morgan Gobey, was just released this month. After 333 days, he still struggles to walk and talk. There is no precedent in Canada for the scale of a crash like this due to dangerous driving. Criminal lawyer Dan Brown.
The judge also has to consider the fact that he's never been in trouble before, that he's pled guilty at an early opportunity, and that he's expressed remorse. So on one side we have the injuries that are caused and the deaths that are caused, and on the other side you have all these other factors weighing against a harsh sentence.
The Crown has proposed 10 years, which would far exceed previous penalties for dangerous driving where there's no drugs or alcohol. But no matter what jail time he gets, if it's over 6 months, he'll serve it here, and then, according to law, because he's a permanent resident and not a Canadian citizen, he will be deported back to India. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, near Melfort, Saskatchewan.
We heard briefly from Scott Thomas in Susan's piece. He's the father of Evan Thomas, one of the Humboldt players who died in that crash. He actually met Jaskirat Singh Sidhu in January, and he described that moment to us today and how he's remembering his son.
It was a meeting of 2 broken men. He's broken, I'm broken, I'll never be the same, he'll never be the same. And it's made what's gonna happen tomorrow almost irrelevant. This is his grad picture on this arm and his handprint on this arm, and the theory behind this one is every time I shake somebody's hand that I meet new, his hand's right there too. And actually now when my family, my dad and my brothers, whenever we get together, we don't shake hands. They all put their hand right here and shake his hand first. And so he's with me wherever I go. And I got pretty big hands, and he had big hands too, so. Yeah.
Very powerful. Still to come, the At Issue panel with their take on the Jane Philpott interview and the reaction to a marathon voting session.
Plus, planning a trip. CBC Marketplace investigates one of the biggest complaints about one of the biggest travel sites, Airbnb.
But up next, that's a wrap. Why a beloved CBC show says its next season will be its last.
Creators used to be at networks' mercies, and now I think that we need so much content to kind of fuel the machine that creators are where it's at.
Someone keeps eating my yogurt.
What kind of yogurt?
I was saving that for after my run, David.
Oh my God, I guess I was saving it for during your run then.
It's goofy, awkward, and at times powerfully human. And today we learned it's about to come to an end. The creators of the CBC comedy Schitt's Creek announced their next season, number 6, will be their last. They're bowing out on their schedule, not something that has always been easy to do in the TV business. To Shauna Reid with why that seems to be changing.
Bought a small town in 1991.
I bought that as a joke for my son.
You can live there for next to nothing until you get back on your feet.
When fans got the news today, they were quick to react. Some are disappointed, and others are applauding the show for ending on a high note.
Alexis Rose, majoring in marketing and...
Co-creators of Schitt's Creek, father and son duo Eugene and Dan Levy, say they are ending the show the way they had envisioned from the very beginning. This TV critic says more and more creators are taking charge of their stories.
I think it's a really positive change for creators right now. Creators used to be at networks' mercies, and now I think that we need so much content to kind of fuel the machine that creators are where it's at.
Saying goodbye while at the top of the game has been a path traveled by many hit shows. Despite a massive global fan base, awards, and millions of viewers, next month HBO's Game of Thrones will enter its final season.
We've done the best we can and ended it how we think best.
AMC TV series Breaking Bad pulled the plug after 5 years.
What kind of work are you in?
Waste management consultant.
And mobster hit series The Sopranos came to an abrupt finish.
Just when they thought I was out.
When a creator is able to fully realize their vision, they know when the time has come. So they don't have to stretch something out for another 20, 30 episodes if they maybe don't have the story in their head, and they don't have to strive to get it.
Knock, knock. Everybody decent?
Oh my God.
The final season of Schitt's Creek will premiere next January. Shauna Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
What are you doing?
But with Netflix, everything lives forever, Ian, so there you go. Just ahead, as you saw at the top of the program, lots of fuel tonight for the At Issue gang. Chantal, Althea, and Jason Markisoff are all here.
And later, something new has just arrived in a tiny BC community, and a very excited resident provides our moment.
Hi, everybody. All right. So, welcome to Port Clements. We have now joined the 21st century, and look at that.
We are live on the National watching the latest out of St. Catharines, Ontario, where police are investigating what they're describing as a serious assault on the campus of Brock University. Niagara Regional Police say they responded to reports of a shooting and found 3 people injured, but 2 were stabbed. 1 appeared to have been shot by a pellet gun. Their injuries not life-threatening, and police stress there is no danger to the public. No arrests have been made. After weeks of protests, Ontario has reversed key aspects of its new autism plan. The province is offering a 6-month extension of services for kids receiving government-funded therapy and anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 for all kids diagnosed as being on the spectrum. Many say that still falls far short of what's needed. The province says it will hold consultations with parents to review how best to address funding for kids with higher needs.
President Trump has just made history.
In a dramatic shift to decades of American foreign policy, Donald Trump says he thinks the time is right for the U.S. to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the disputed Golan Heights. Previous administrations have treated it as occupied Syrian territory, but the U.S. president said the territory is of critical strategic and security importance to the state of Israel and regional stability. Also tonight, more than 90 people are dead after a ferry capsized on the Tigris River in Iraq. There were about 150 passengers on board celebrating the Persian New Year. It's not clear what went wrong, but witnesses say the ferry was overloaded. Videos of the accident show people in the water struggling against the current. Many of the dead were children.
Just moments ago, a story broke in Maclean's magazine in which the outgoing Liberal Treasury Board president said, and I quote, that there is more to this story.
Given Ms. Philpott's interview, given everything that we've heard, more than ever, we need a public inquiry.
The question really is for Jane or Jody that say what you got to say.
We recognize that a diversity of perspectives, of experiences, of opinions is extraordinarily important.
The government's attempts to change the channel and sell the budget, which is what the Prime Minister is trying to do there, just got a whole lot more difficult. Between Jane Philpott's interview in Maclean's and the marathon voting session in the House of Commons, the SNC-Lavalin controversy isn't over yet. So where does it all go from here? At issue, back for the second time this week. Chantal Hébert is in Montreal, Althea Raj is in Ottawa, and Jason Markusoff joins us from Calgary tonight. Good to see everybody. So let's start with the interview that Paul Wells, our friend, did for Maclean's. I just want to show people a little bit more, if you haven't read it, of what Jane Philpott told him. The following, quote, "I believe the former Attorney General has further points to make. I believe that I have further issues of concern that I'm not free to share." She goes on, "My sense is that Canadians would like to know the whole story. I believe we actually owe it to Canadians as politicians to ensure that they have the truth." She didn't at any point say any sort of detail in terms of what else had to be said, just sort of left that out there, dangling out there. Chantal, what do you make of her comments to Paul?
Well, I'm perplexed. If I knew something that I deemed to be essential to Canadians, and I had resigned from cabinet on the basis of all that I knew, and I had means to tell what I have to say, and she does, I would not be giving interviews to tease the public into going, so what is it? And I think that this interview basically has pushed both Ms. Philpott and Ms. Wilson-Raybould to the point of either you have something to say and you do say it in the House of Commons under parliamentary privilege, or hold your peace.
She also says in the interview, Althea, that she doesn't feel like she can say it. I mean, we can have that debate over parliamentary procedure, what she could use, but that's what she feels, that she is not comfortable or safe saying these things because she has not had cabinet confidence waived. Althea.
Well, there are a number of tools at her disposal that are not holding a press conference publicly and perhaps breaching any cabinet confidence she's worried about that deal with the period of time after the January shuffle. I mean, she's free to basically say anything up to that point where Jerry Butts spoke in the at the committee about the January shuffle. She could go to the House of Commons and talk about whatever she wants. She is protected under privilege as a member of Parliament. So she has a number of avenues. So does Ms. Jody Wilson-Raybould. They don't need to wait for the opposition to invite them to committee. They can write a brief to the committee if they wish, outlining the things that they wish that they had said or had the opportunity to say that the other witnesses, like Michael Warnick, like Nathalie Drouin, came and spoke about. If there's anything they want to counter, they could use a brief. There are a number of avenues at their disposal, and I think we are reaching the point where now you have caucus members coming out and saying, well, if you've got something to say, well, then say it. Otherwise, what are you doing? And if Ms. Philpott did not want to enrage her caucus colleagues, as many Liberals are today, why would she be giving an interview 2 days after the Liberal government has tabled its budget? There is no scenario under which she did not know that this was going to cause them great harm. She could have waited until next week when Parliament is not sitting. So there's a lot of questions about motivation and intention here that I think a lot of people are asking.
She does say that she is aware she is hurting her Liberal colleagues. We actually saw some of them today, Jason, start to say that publicly, that frustration. But the analogy I used early this morning when this came out was, it's sort of like the two of them are burning down the house, but they're standing in the middle of the house while it's happening. So what do you make of what she has done and why she would have talked to Paul?
She strikes me as somebody who's very, very tortured on this, very conflicted. I mean, it almost seemed like a bit of a dramatic Shakespearean, perhaps, soliloquy. I don't want to hurt my team. I don't want Andrew Scheer to do this. I want the Liberals, though, to be better Liberals. It seems like she's almost goading Trudeau and Jerry Butts to say more so that she doesn't have to, that she doesn't want to be holding a knife toward them. She wants to have an opportunity for either Jody Wilson-Raybould or herself to be given the right to speak. Somebody from the Trudeau government to say, "Let the truth set you free," and say what you will. We have nothing to hide. Yeah. She's clearly is not happy with this at this point, but she doesn't want to hurt the Liberal Party, although she clearly is.
Yeah, Chantal. Yeah.
Certain to the Liberal parties themselves, they'll see it that way.
Yeah. Okay, Chantal.
But 2 points. One, she is not, as far as I can tell, at the center of the story. She was not the Attorney General, and she has now positioned herself in a starring role with Revelations. If this story is about undue pressure on an Attorney General, I'm curious to see how central she can be to that story. Second, it is now clear that she's gunning for the Prime Minister. Why is it clear? Because everyone else is dead. That's the last person of importance really standing. Sorry, other staffers. And as Jody Wilson-Raybould did in her testimony, she keeps placing the Prime Minister front and center in everything that she has to say. Yeah. So having gotten the clerk of the Privy Council and the Principal Secretary, you have to think that if you want to be still a Liberal and you hope that they stay in power, but you're still doing this, you want the head of the Prime Minister.
Except she also, I agree with you, Jason, she does seem very conflicted, and maybe that's I don't know, maybe that's real or not. I'm not sure. I'm not inside her head. Certainly I've asked for an interview as well. But she also seems to be she's not directly involved in anything she's talking about. A lot of the things that she is referring to are, I assume, things that she has heard from Jody Wilson-Raybould. She was not part of the meetings that Jody Wilson-Raybould outlined. So it's unclear to me what else she would have to, and maybe there's something, I don't know, but what else she would have to say around that. Althea, you want to weigh in there?
I don't think that she is talking about herself wanting to say that much more. I think she is really speaking on behalf of Jody Wilson-Raybould and arguing that Ms. Raybould should be given a chance to speak, and this sort of teasing that there is much more to the story that needs to be told and the public deserves to be told. Well, okay, then tell us. Yeah. But to Chantal's point, I think Ms. Wilson-Raybould is actually gunning still for some staffers, but I agree that it seems like the eye is on the Prime Minister, and I think it's very telling that both women are not in the House of Commons at the moment, as we are recording this, voting in a slew of confidence measures supporting this government, which kind of begs the question what they're still doing in caucus, and frankly, what the government's handling, the Prime Minister's office handling of this whole issue has been, because there are a lot of caucus members who would like to be given the chance to vote to boot these women out.
Okay, Joe Biden reported today that they were actually told not to show up for votes because it would create too much tension with their colleagues there, which I know is a whole other problem. But so let's just talk about then the opposition tactics over the past 24, 48 hours, trying to show this outrage, keep the story alive. I don't know how much credit they get for keeping it alive when really I think it's this interview that did it. So how effective has that strategy been, Jason? And then what on earth does the government do at this stage? What does Justin Trudeau do?
I mean, I think back to the last major scandal that actually did ultimately take down a government, the sponsorship scandal, and the Liberal sponsorship scandal from a decade ago. And I can't for the life of me remember anything that the opposition under Stephen Harper said at that point. Every interesting inflection point of that whole saga, except for a couple of dramatic House votes, were all based on different shoes dropping in inquiries and investigations and revelations and leaks. And so it is for this. I kind of liken this filibuster vote thing to a truck convoy. I realize it's a bit of a pungent comparison these days, but a truck convoy is something that clogs up traffic, and people look at it and say, why are these guys holding up traffic? Why are all these trucks angry? What are they doing? And somebody will say to them, it's this issue, and everybody else will say, oh, okay. It's a good way to attract attention, but I don't think anybody's going to, the to what is like just a one-sentence thing.
Yeah, okay, so Chantal, given that, I think that's a good analogy. What does Justin Trudeau do now?
It's a very good question. I'm glad he has to answer it for himself. I can only say...
What might he do then? What might he do?
Seriously, I think that the government did draw a line in the sand when they decided that, or the Liberal majority on the committee decided they didn't want to hear any more witnesses. You can't draw lines deep in the sand and then back off and change those lines forever. I would say, on the basis of having covered Brian Mulroney, Jean Chrétien, I think Stephen Harper, obviously, I think even Paul Martin would all have shown the door to Ms. Philpott and Ms. Wilson-Raybould at this point.
So there are mixed feelings on that front from the people I've spoken to. Some people concerned that they will be turned further into martyrs of a cause, and some people, and we saw some of them publicly today, saying this is untenable. So I don't know what's the best way forward, but there is obviously pressure on him as a leader to
be a leader.
Well, to act proactively. Althea, what do you think is the next move that we might see here, or how they contain it?
I think he's made his views known, and it would be hard for him to backtrack on that and on this idea that the Liberal Party is a Big Tent party and we accept people with divergent views, and they've still committed to Liberal ideals in the party, and they were tweeting about the budget, so one assumes that they like the budget. But I think that just in terms of cabinet caucus solidarity, his team, leadership of his team, and not appearing weak, frankly, he should let the caucus decide if they want these women in the team or not.
What do you think, Jason?
I mean, I think that it's probably best for him to do to make it a team decision. I think that would be certainly a good deference to his team. But this is somebody who's been very centralizing throughout his government, and I think he's aware that there's already been this sting about this. So many headlines about him being a fake feminist. What's he really done for reconciliation? Having turfed or having alienated and bullied his top Indigenous cabinet minister. So I think he, and certainly a lot of caucus, is wary of the political implications of ejecting people at this point.
Is this something, Chantal, last word to you, is this something where, I don't know if this is going too far, but where Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott are trying to redefine the Liberal Party and do it so that it no longer has anything to do with the leader? Is that going too far?
Yes. If this were a Paul Martin situation, if there was someone inside caucus who looked like an obvious great alternative to Justin Trudeau, we would be talking about something very different. And if this were not on the eve of an election, but at this point, I think most caucus members agree that they're going to sink or swim with Justin Trudeau next fall, and that neither of these women is going to be the leader of the party anytime soon. So they are redefining behavior, but I'm not sure that they are shaping a new mold for behavior.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Before we go, be sure to subscribe to At Issue, the podcast, for extra content this week. We're talking about probably Jason's favorite subject this week anyway, the Alberta election. It was also called this week. Look for it on iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/thenational.
Just ahead on tonight's National, when Airbnb goes bad. CBC Marketplace investigates one of the most common complaints about the travel giant.
And I'm just like, okay, so this is just a joke. This is, just they're having some fun with me, right? And then it's like, okay, so now this has just gone serious.
This Sunday, Andrew sits down with Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques, except one of them didn't really sit down. Here's a preview.
Can I start by asking you how you've adjusted? To the work and to the routine, but also just something as simple as getting around.
You know, it doesn't come doesn't come quickly. It in my case took several weeks, but yes, I did eventually adjust physically completely. And there's also some mental adjustments, psychological adjustments, sense of disorientation initially, both in time and in space. Learning to fly has been the most important thing, I guess. Learning to move around using your feet and your hands without breaking anything and without taking anything off the walls. Initially, when you see rookies come in, we kind of very slowly move, and yet we bang things around. Now you kind of, without thinking about it, you just push yourself in the right direction and float through the modules.
I don't want to be, oh, why me, why me, why me? But, you know, where is their support?
He booked a dream vacation through Airbnb and then had the rug pulled out from under him. Actually, that is one of the most common complaints against the world's biggest home-sharing brand, cancellations by the host. Our Marketplace colleague, Charles Liagro, investigated why.
That was actually quite neat.
David Jackal spent months planning his 5-week 50th birthday getaway to Mexico. He booked his Airbnb rental 6 months in advance.
The price was amazing, really.
3 days before he was supposed to check in, his host canceled on him.
And I'm just like, okay, so this is just a joke. This is, just they're having some fun with me, right? And then it's like, okay, so now this has just gone serious.
At the last minute, Airbnb offered Jackal 2 alternatives, but he says they just didn't compare.
When I was looking at these, it was like, this is not even close. Price-wise, the comparison was spot on. Amenity-wise and everything else, not even close.
The only similar Airbnb Jackal says he could find had a $7,400 price tag, over $6,000 more than his original rental. He expected Airbnb would take care of the difference.
So the only way that I find that I have any recourse going back after Airbnb would be to book another Airbnb listing.
Turns out Jackal's not the only Airbnb user who's been canceled on at the last minute.
And this is where
Asher Ferguson analyzed more than 1,000 Airbnb guest stories for his blog after his own negative Airbnb experience.
Of the over 1,000 negative reviews we studied, 20% cited the host canceled the stay.
Airbnb only pay a percentage. We do not cover the whole total cost, okay?
After exchanging emails and phone calls with Airbnb for several months, Jackal was told he was not entitled to a full refund. But hours after Marketplace told Airbnb we were investigating Jackal's complaint, he did get his money back, more than $6,000. When we asked Airbnb why the sudden change of heart, the company wouldn't answer. But it did tell us negative incidents are extremely rare, and when they do happen, it tries to make them right.
The magic of traveling.
Ferguson says Airbnb needs to live up to the messages in its marketing and take a more proactive approach to protecting its users from troublesome hosts. David, do you know that this is a $30 billion company and you took them on and you won?
I don't want to say that I took them on, but I didn't give up. How's that?
Jackal is just back from another trip to Mexico. This time, he stayed at a resort. Charles Liagro, CBC News, Spruce Grove, Alberta.
Last-minute cancellations are just one of the complaints Marketplace looked into. You can watch the full investigation tomorrow night on CBC Television starting at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland.
Our moment is on the way. What's got the people of Port Clements, British Columbia just so excited?
I feel like I've been watching the world through a hole in the wall for the last 4 years. So it's so exciting to actually be a part of the rest of the world now.
I said merriment, because that's what happens when I spend too much time with my mother. Also that the two of you could sneak off to some secret dance rehearsal behind her back like a pair of dirty con artists.
Please, just keep her distracted for one more night.
No.
CBC, Canada's Olympic Network.
A town without cell phone service, no texts or calls or scrolling through Instagram. It's hard to imagine for many Canadians. But for Cindy Bird and the rest of Port Clements, BC, it's been just normal life. Until now. Because now a cell tower has been built and the service is strong, and the excitement in Port Clements is our moment.
We checked our phones. We actually, my husband and I set up a hotspot and we were able to surf the internet all night, which was amazing. We had a really good night, actually. It started dinging. It just, I looked down at my phone and all of a sudden I've got voicemails. Quite a few of us are pretty excited about it. I mean, it's a safety thing, right? We do have bears, we have different wildlife and stuff, and it's nice to have that as a bit of a safety feature. There's a few people that are a little bit upset about potential dangers from a cell phone tower, but for the most part, we're pretty happy about it. We have never had cell phone service in Port Clements. This is my first video chat. I feel like I've been watching the world through a hole in the wall for the last 4 years. So it's so exciting to actually be a part of the rest of the world now.
Well, I hope she's following you on Instagram. That alone will open up her world. Lots of places in this province that don't have cell service. My sister-in-law lives on a ranch near Williams Lake. They don't have it. So good for the people on Haida Gwaii. Cindy said she was up all night on the internet. Hopefully she won't be up all night when she gets her bill.
They did have internet. It was like so slow that they couldn't do anything. In fact, Cindy had to download FaceTime just to because she didn't even have it because she never used it. I actually would move to Port Clements because I sleep with this thing and sometimes you just need a little break. But now I can't move there either.
I don't believe that for a second. You are a constant tweeter and Instagrammer, and I'm not sure what all the verbs would be. So I think I enjoy the fact that you have your phone with you all the time. That is the National for this Thursday, March 21st. Good night.
Hello? Okay, thanks. Good night.